Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Today it's time to take a look at the Meg's disastrous polo dress. I got tagged in this so many times and I am excited to finally have time to talk about it with you guys. Let's get into it. Meghan Markle attended the Royal Salute Polo Challenge to benefit Prince Harry's charity Sentebale in an ivory Heidi Merrick ginger dress retailing for $515. There is one good thing. The drop waist. The pleats starting low on the silhouette of the dress and having that sort of lower start to the skirt is really good for lengthening her torso and balancing out her proportions, which, as we have established and talked about, she has the shorter torso, which makes her legs and arms appear lanky and long in comparison, especially when she wears these really high heels like she does. So having drop waist silhouettes or styles can be really helpful in balancing her proportions, so that's good. My first impression of this is that it just looks a little messy and kind of bulky. I don't particularly like the vibe of this for a lot of reasons. The turtleneck definitely sort of eats up her whole neck here. Now that is well balanced to some extent by the exposed shoulders and even the cutout here along the midriff. But the outfit overall does fail to retrieve the balance with this poor fit around the bust. She's definitely not filling it out as much as it intended. Challenge that she's likely running into for this particular outfit is that it's tricky to do any sort of an actual bra. So her go-to padded bras are not an option here. So she's either braless or has some sort of, just stick-on situation. And because of her wider, boxier torso, the size that she has is allowing for extra room in the bust. So in the absence of tailoring this to actually fit her proportions perfectly, we have too much room in the bust, which is creating a loose, bulky sort of a situation where it looks like there's just too much fabric and room across her bust and upper rib cage area here. And overall, this does in some ways end up accentuating her straight torso. Whereas if the dress were inverted in its design elements, meaning if it had a V-neck or a wrap style with a V-neck instead of a cutout, and if it had like short sleeves instead of a halter neck, it would have actually balanced her proportions a lot, because a V-neck would elongate her neckline. A wrap would provide a diagonal across the torso, giving the illusion of a less boxy torso. So while the dress isn't awful on its own, it's just not a perfect pairing for the Meg and her actual proportions and style concerns. The skirt itself also looks a little bit big on her, volume-wise, especially compared to her thin legs. And yes, a slip would have been a more classy approach to this and would have looked nicer, because the light shining through this is really drawing attention to the skirt. You're kind of ending up competing with those cutouts and halter neck sort of vibe up here, to where you don't really have a good focal point. If she had worn a slip, that wouldn't be happening as dramatically. The two big shoes are tragic once again. We're pretty used to her wearing oversized high heels that are too big in a dramatic way. Like, they're far too big for her. Honestly, for this dress and for this occasion, being out on a grassy field and whatnot, wedge shoes would have been way better option and probably more comfortable for her. A lot of people have been speculating that maybe she's having trouble with her ankles or her bunions or something, because she's been seen in flats a lot more often. And so wedge heels tend to be a lot easier to walk in and a lot more comfortable than these sorts of spike heels or stilettos or things like that. And so this, high heel with the fine, not even a block heel, but fine heel point here is just not very practical. It's not benefiting the look overall or the style overall. I do think that the nude color seemed fine, and her styling overall when it came to the hair, the makeup, the jewelry seems fine. I think the bow on the back of this dress also looks a little too over the top. It's quite huge. It's a bit strangling. I'm not in love with that design element either. She also had a really socially awkward moment yet again, where she, for no reason whatsoever, was handing Harry the trophy for this polo tournament. She hobbles, quite literally hobbles, onto the stage. This is why you shouldn't wear heels that are too high and too big in the actual shoe itself. So she can't hardly walk onto the stage at all. But then she demands this poor woman move away from Prince Harry. It's so strange. When you're on the public stage, you just don't want to do things like this. You don't want to be the one micromanaging. Leave it to an assistant or an event organizer. Just stay out of it. Just stand there and enjoy the moment and look like you're enjoying the moment. Don't look like you're bossing people around, because it just comes across bad. If she was just genuinely thinking, let's put all the ladies in the middle, it'll look more aesthetically pleasing, fine. Perhaps it had nothing to do with Prince Harry himself and this woman standing together. Perhaps that's not what the motivation was, because the internet is very much of the mind that she simply didn't want this lady standing next to or photographed next to Prince Harry, which would be extra weird and jealous in a bizarre sense of the word. But perhaps she was just thinking, let's have the ladies in the center here, because there were the three of them up there. But again, it's not her place. She's not an event organizer. She's not the one in charge. She's not an assistant. Know your role. Don't do those sorts of things if you're the one being photographed and being videographed, because then you will look bossy and bad, especially if the woman doesn't listen and comply right away the way this lady did, which, I mean, good for her. She didn't feel like moving, didn't think she needed to. And Harry and Meghan made the lady crawl under the trophy. They didn't even move it out of her way for her to gracefully move into the other area. So perhaps she didn't listen to the Meg's orders, in part because there was no clear path for her to move. It didn't make sense. But let's just pretend for a moment that this was some other lady, even Catherine, the Princess of Wales, whom we all love and has a great impression out there. She has a great public image. She has a good reputation. If she was doing this, it would look super weird. It's not about the Meg. It's not exclusive to the Meg. Anybody bossing somebody around on stage and repeating it 3 or 4 times just to get the lady to listen is gonna look bossy and bad. It just is. There's no way around it. It's just, it's bizarre. How bizarre. How bizarre. Between barely being able to walk as she gets up onto the stage and bossing the lady around, it was yet another disastrous outing. It's still not quite as bad as this sort of peak cringe where she tried to steal this man's treasure box and she got in the middle of them holding up a trophy amongst all the man's sweaty pits. They didn't even win this trophy in this instant. It was just astounding. So at least there's some improvements, I suppose. The woman, though, that she was bossing around, I believe is part of the leadership team of Sentebale. So she actually does have a connection with Prince Harry. She has worked with him or had contact with him over the years. That's not to say that Prince Harry is incredibly involved or anything like that. He doesn't seem to demonstrate great work ethic or anything like that. But regardless, she does know Prince Harry. One can assume she doesn't really know the Meg. So for her, it made sense to stand near Prince Harry. And by demanding she move, Meghan did make it look like she was being possessive of Harry, which indicated insecurity. This is the same message she sent out with the hand-holding all the time. And clinging to Harry at impractical times sent a message of insecurity. There were times where holding hands makes sense, like helping somebody up the stairs or out of a car, or in day off type situations, casual type situations, or family moments, for example. But Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's constant hand-holding, even during times like meet and greets, when you're being introduced to important figures like ambassadors or heads of a charity, at walkabouts, when you're there to literally meet the public, you're supposed to be shaking people's hands. And on official engagements, it made zero sense and looked juvenile and insecure to be clinging to one another in those scenarios. So this is a similar type of vibe. By worrying so much about where everybody was standing on stage when that was not her place, made her look insecure, just as the hand-holding did. But my biggest question still remains, why is the Meg the one handing out this trophy? She's not a patron of any sort of polo organization. She's never been involved in any sort of sporty situations or polo things. She's not even involved with Sentibale. This is something that I believe Prince Harry had going before he even met the Meg. Doesn't it make a lot more sense for the woman who's involved with Sentibale to hand out the trophy or something like that? Since I presume she's the one who would be receiving the charity winnings on behalf of Sentibale. The Meg really had no part in this, no role to serve here. So it maketh no sense to have the Meg randomly give out this trophy for no good reason. But at least she didn't try to smooch all the players like she did last time. Later on in this same trip, we saw just 1 or 2 pictures from this dinner reception or something of that nature of the Meg in this black backless dress. Really, I couldn't find any useful pictures of this outfit at all, but this is the dress itself, and this is the only picture I could really find. It's really hardly worth mentioning this dress at all, but the dress itself does have some things going for it for people with similar body types: broader shoulders, square torso, boxy torso, lack of a well-defined waist, those sorts of things. This diagonal asymmetrical cutout on the front of the dress does give some balance to the exposed shoulders. So I think that that was a decent choice in terms of how it looks here in this picture off the rack from the front here. The dramatic open back, I can't say whether that suited the event, whether it was appropriate or not for this reception. We just didn't see enough pictures of it to be able to make a determination there. But given that these 2 appearances, both the polo match and this dinner, were technically private ones, they're no longer working royals and they are really only representing themselves at this point, it does change the dynamic to some degree in terms of what's appropriate and what's not. However, the conflict comes because Harry and Meghan do still market themselves as royal. They use their titles. They are demanding people refer to them as sir and ma'am and things of that nature, rather than just being Harry and Meg, which they tried very briefly when they first left the royal family. There was a few rumblings of Harry being like, just Harry, call me just Harry. Almost like renouncing his title to some degree. Well, that idea is long gone now. Now, every chance they get, they're pointing out Duke and Duchess of Sussex. So by continuing to affiliate with the titles, it does create a conflict when you present yourself in a sort of questionable manner if you're still trying to have that connection and draw parallels to the royals. But please leave your comments below. I look forward to reading them. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a very happy day ahead. I'll see you next time.